There is more than enough space. And I'm calling on young people with your degree, with your, I have MBBS, I'm doing a master's program, I will do a doctorate after that, but I am doing farming and I'm starting small and I intend to scale. I am very convinced that there is one, a gap to be met, and number two, there's a lot of money to be made in farming. So food production is massive. It's going to be, maybe in my opinion, the next set of African billionaires are going to rise. Just like we have tech billionaires, we're going to have agri-billionaires.
Interesting. I'd like to formally welcome you into the Farmers Club.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you. Can you tell us what actually inspired you to start up this, have this one behind your house? What could have moved you to use this space for this project?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. Okay, so from when I was in secondary school, one of my ambitions was to own a big farm. From my agri days. It is still my retirement plan. I hope that someday I will leave the public health work I'm doing and get into farming full time. And so sometime last year, when I came to your farm and saw the great work you were doing, it kind of stirred up that desire that I have always nursed, and I decided that it would be good to start a small project at the back of the house rather than just leaving the space or planting flowers. I was going to use it to test run an idea that I have seen you work with, and then also to get alternative income for my family. And this is the beginning of my retirement process.
Awesome. So this to also let you know that this project was executed by Farm Ferry. Isn't it interesting? All right. So what are the prospects really for this business? Because for you to desire to venture into such, you must have looked at the prospects and that this is something worth going into. So what would you say is really that motivation, aside the passion you have, that made you to take the bold step?
Okay, thank you. First of all is to say that when you, for every business, right, you do a feasibility studies when you start and say, is this business viable? And I think that we can all agree that this business, the food business, is a viable business because we have a big gap in terms of the need in the market. We have a large population that is in need of certain farm produce, and we still fall short. Our food production is very low. When you bring that layer on what's happening in terms of climate change and the desertification in the north, which used to be a very arable and agrarian part of the nation, plus the impact of conflict, displacement of people away from their communities, mostly rural farmers from the farmer-herder clashes, you see that there is a very big gap that is there to be filled. And even with the production that used to happen, we still fell short. And we need to be thinking as a nation of income that is away from oil, away from big jobs in NNPC or the likes, and think about what we can get from the land. I am very convinced that there is one, a gap to be met, and number two, there's a lot of money to be made in farming. So food production is massive. It's going to be, maybe in my opinion, the next set of African billionaires are going to rise. Just like we have tech billionaires, we're going to have agri-billionaires.
Interesting. You're a medical doctor and you work in the NGO space, and now you are coming into agri. So I don't understand. Can you try to help us know how you have moved in this pattern, and because, a lot of people out there see farming as something that, is for the old people, or it's something that people generally will look down on. How have you moved from, all this circle, being a doctor, NGO, and now farming?
Okay. Thank you very much. So for starters, I never really enjoyed or wanted to practice clinical medicine. So after my mandatory 1 year of housemanship, in my NYC year, I decided I was going to work in a non-profit. So I did a bit of that. And even when I was working, I had 2 jobs. The other one in in the hospital, I was working in health financing. I was not clinical. I was not consulting patients.
Okay.
So it's been more than 8 years now since I sat to do a clinical job, because I had always known I was going to practice. I was going to do public health and work with communities rather than with patients. And so the transition from public health to farming for me is not as drastic as it appears, because for me, I think that one of the things I do on my projects is when I'm doing project design, I need to have a sustainability plan. I need to say when this funding ends. Projects are usually have a cycle, some 3 years, some 5 years, some even 1 year. But beyond that, I need to have a sustainability plan that says, what do I need to do after this project ends to ensure that the gains of this project are carried on by the community or the places where we have implemented. Yeah. So for me, it is closely related, and I see farming as my sustainability plan, because again, donor funding is not guaranteed. You know what Trump is doing now. So many people are going to lose their jobs, and these are people with a lot of experience. Some have spent 20, 30 years doing this thing, and they did not have an exit plan. The exit plan they had was, at some point I'm going to retire and then get my pension, and all of a sudden it's out. So for me, it's my sustainability plan. I am in my early 30s, but I think that it is not too early to start planning for retirement. To say, what do I need to do for myself when this money stops coming from this source?
And farming is not such a dirty
it's
not such a dirty job that
not at all.
You would be willing to.
My view is that if I get a hold of this farming, I'm going to let go of my NGO job and focus on farming. It's people do not realize the control.
You don't wear suits to the farm.
No, I don't want to.
You don't dress clean. No. It's a dirty place actually,
and I like it. You see, there is the advantage of having the control over your time, and many people don't realize how tasking it is to have to show up to work every day. Get up, get dressed, and go. If I have a farm, and my wife knows this, it has been my long-term dream. At the end of the day, I want to live on my farm. So I wake up and I want to go check on the cows. I will get into my truck and drive to where they are, or take a walk. I want to go to the poultry. I'm going to do the same, because I believe very firmly that farming gives you, as an entrepreneur, is a unique kind of engagement where you are adding value to the community on the one hand, and you are making money on the other hand. So there is the financial benefit. The other part is the control. I want to have control over my time. I want to be my own boss, like they say. I want to have, and I want to be an employer of labor. I want to control the value chain. Say I have a poultry, I want to also have a meat shop outside the poultry. So you come and buy frozen meat from me. I finish, I dress, I keep, buy eggs and all of that. So I don't consider it dirty. It's a legitimate business, and it is my own sustainability plan.
Ready to put your hands to the soil.
Yes. Very
really nice. So this is a small project. It's 3 by 12 feet greenhouse right behind his house, and this is actually in a way starting small. So a lot of young people are out there and are looking for jobs to do. They really want to get engaged, and here you are, starting something small. So is that a way of also motivating others? Is there a way you can maybe speak to someone out there that, okay, you can actually start really small and the prospects are really good, because we did some little maths with you and we see that even from this small space, something good can come. So
I think that I am already an advocate for farming. I have already convinced my colleagues in the office. I am currently looking for land. This is my pilot project, so I'm starting small, testing, knowing, and I've discussed with you. I want to have a control group, right? Maybe my public health mind is also kicking in.
Nice.
I want to have a control group and say how I want to produce outside the greenhouse just a little and compare with the production in the greenhouse, because I want to be able to interact with people with data, to use information and say this is how or why we are doing what we are doing. So already my colleagues are in on it. I have a few friends that were doing some partnerships that we're looking at maybe later in the year. With your support and your help, we will be able to get in and also scale. Beyond that, I'm also advocating for people who do not have the time. Like me, I'm not going to have too much time at this stage to focus, but we're looking for investment opportunities. We have someone who is going to be able to manage it for us. We'll be able to pull funds together and put into the business. So I'm already an advocate, and I'm now calling on young people. I'm calling on the old. I'm calling on people who have any resource whatsoever or no resources whatsoever. I mean, even if it is the time you have, even if you have land, I believe most people have some small piece of land. Start small, like I am doing. Look for opportunities to scale, and get into the business. Believe me, the space, like they say about the sky, that the sky is wide enough for every bird to fly in. The agri space is big enough to contain you. Don't be concerned about your current location, where you are at, and you're saying, okay, perhaps there's no market here, people wouldn't buy. There are people over there across the streets who will buy from you. There are people who are further down who will buy. And we've also discussed about linkages with middlemen. In some cases, we may need to also approach certain people who can buy in bulk from us. So I just want to assure you that there's more than enough space. And I'm calling on young people with your degree, I have MBBS, I'm doing a master's program, I will do a doctorate after that, but I am doing farming, and I'm starting small, and I intend to scale. And when it's big enough, it's me and Enoch, man. I'm gonna
Awesome, awesome.
You,
Do you feel we have the capacity as a nation to feed ourselves, and what steps should be taken really to do this? Because the population keeps increasing and the realities are staring us in the face. So what steps do you think we ought to take?
Okay, thank you for that question. First thing to say, I believe that we can feed ourselves. I think that is more than it's more than a given. It's something that we must agree as a people, that we have the capacity, we have the land, we have the resources to feed ourselves as a nation. I do not believe that Nigeria is not one of those places where we do not have arable land, where the land is not, you're not able to farm. I mean, even in the core north, where there's desertification, or even in the south where there's oil spillage and land pollution and all that, we know that we are a farming people. That's who we are. So we have the capacity to feed ourselves. And what steps do we need to take? I will speak on this from two perspectives, or maybe three. One, as from an individual level. Secondly, as communities. And then thirdly, from a national perspective, or the view of what the government should do. I will leave that for the last, because often as Nigerians, we like to look at what the government should do. The government should do this. The government should do this, and all of that. I think that for individuals, for starters, is to think agric. First of all, to have a shift in our mindsets that says that you do not need to do a 9 to 5. And I think that gradually, at least the younger generation understands that you do not need to have an office job to be a successful person. The definition of success, the definition of a career has shifted and has changed over the years. So I think that we need younger people like you and I, and even younger, to begin to think agric, to begin to think about farming, to think about agri-business as a viable business and as a career path. I think that at individual levels also, we need to take this step. We should stop fantasizing about doing something big. Start small, like my little farm at the back of the house. Start a garden, grow something, and eat what you produce. And then you may have enough to feed other people in your community, or even sell, which is my own plan. So I think number one, think agric. Number two, start something, start small. The second thing I will say is on the community level. At the community level, I think we need to come together and begin to think about how to utilize the land that we have. I don't know how much you travel. I travel a lot. And between Jos and let's say you're going to Abuja, you see a lot of vast land that is unused, nothing is happening. You just see shrubs growing, trees growing, and so we need to think as communities, how can we come together and utilize the resource that we have? As a community, we need to find ways to form small cooperatives, to cluster ourselves together in ways that we can utilize the land that we have. The truth is, there's just so much you can do as one individual. But if we come together, we have 10 of us, with each bringing ₦1 million. You have 10 million naira that you can invest in a farm and work on it. So I think at the community level, we need to have cooperatives, we need to have societies, and come together, band ourselves together and utilize the expertise that we have, the resources that we have, and approach business as a team. Most of us do not want to be sole proprietors of businesses, but the truth is that we need to have groups of companies that are invested in agriculture, because I believe that that's the next big thing. On the government end, I think that the government also needs to emphasize agriculture as a viable life path. For starters, it can start from the educational system. To say, in my secondary school, I had a farm. It was part of my agri project, where you had a farm to tend, to take care of, and your agri teacher used to go there to look at what you did. So it was not just about the knowledge that was transferred to you in the classroom, but the practicality of it on the ground. So we all had farms in my secondary school that we worked on, and I think that at that policy level, at the educational policy level, government needs to ensure that people do not only have the information, but they need to have also the practical experience. Just like we have technical schools that used to be in those days, like for those of us who know Plateau State, there's the Butex, like the Bukuru School of Technology or something like that. We need to have vocational schools
like that.
Yes, that are dedicated to agri and agri-businesses, from animal husbandry to the planting of various crops and all of that. That's horticulture. We need to have all of that done at that level. Then other things that involve money, like soft loans and all of that, ensuring that those things actually get to the farmers, not to some big guy in Abuja who will eventually just give the money to his friends and colleagues. But having real-time investment in agriculture that trickles down to the farmers. I think that this cuts across is both government and community level, is that we need to also come together and have storage facilities, because one of the biggest problems we have is wastage. We have a lot of wastage.
We produce a lot, but we are not able to process and all.
I used to work in Benue in some communities on the public health projects, and in the mango season, you will be driving through flies because there are so many mangoes wasting. Right? When it is orange season, same thing. We waste a lot of food.
Yes, sir. So now, building up on that, of course we produce a lot, but what we find difficult to do is to process, to add value. And agriculture provides a lot of value chain. The value chain is enormous. So how can we actually, improve on what we produce? Because we have the capacity, like you said, we do the production, but then how we are able to sustain it and then add value to it.
I think that's a very important thing to do. When you look at the agricultural value chain, we like I said earlier, we waste a lot. So we need to have a system that ensures that we can store, we can improve or process, and then we can get it to the table. So not just from the farm. The average farmer thinks of production, doesn't think of processing and consumption, getting it to the table. So the average farmer needs to think that way. And that brings me back to the point I was talking about, how we need to have cooperatives and societies. The truth is that we can approach financial institutions, banks and all that, and even processing, or what do you call them now? Processing companies. People, for example, you have tomatoes. There are companies that make tomato paste that preserves it over the for a longer time, gives it a longer shelf life, and you'll be able to transport it to other places. Now, the biggest challenge for the processor is the constant supply of the raw materials that you need to process. So it's going to be very difficult for one farmer to satisfy the person. But if you come as a cooperative and say together as or a group of 200 farmers, we can give you 2 metric tons of tomatoes every quarter, right? That guarantees that you will have a constant supply. You can come set up your shop, a processing plant here, and you can provide, we can supply to you and you process it. So awesome. The important thing we need to do is to come together. The approach that we have of a one-man show is not really going to work. We need a cooperative. We need to come together, band together. It's easier also for financial institutions to give us loans. If we want to set up the processing plant and we need $1 billion, they are highly unlikely to give one person $1 billion.
So just as a way of concluding, yes, someone watching us out there may be motivated to venture into this, but I just want us to really make it clear out there that yes, there is good prospects in this business. Yes, people make good money from this business, but people need to also know that it takes time. And for me, even when I was coming into the agri sector, I really felt as though if I invest this in the next few months, I don't blow.
Yes.
It did not happen that way. So I think we need to say something to make people know that it's a discipline. It's a lifelong thing. When you come into it, yes, there will be times where you blow, but you have to pay the price, in the journey.
I completely agree with you. I was supposed to spend 6 years in the university studying medicine. I ended up spending 9 for no fault of mine, strikes and all of that. After that, it's been 8 years of hard work, of other things that I have been doing, pursuing my further studies and all of that. I'm where I am today in my career because I devoted time to studies and all of that. I'm saying this to say that everything worthwhile takes time. Everything, I think it was John Maxwell that said that everything worthwhile is uphill. So it's definitely going to take time. This is not some fast money, it's not a Ponzi scheme. It's not bring 2 people, I'll bring 2 people, put 100 naira. Next week you're going to get 500.
2 million.
Yes, and that's why my retirement age in Nigeria is 60 years. I've started preparing at 33. I have a 27 years roadmap. Hopefully I don't get that. I don't get to stay that long, but that's my plan. So I think that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it is sustainable, it is reliable, it is honorable, it is the first job ever that God gave a man, right? The very first
from
job.
The garden of Eden.
From the garden. God put the man there to tend it and to keep it. God gave him a farming job. That's what God did. So it's the oldest profession. I know other people will argue here and there, but that's really like the oldest profession that there is, known to man. So I think that what young people need to know is that yes, it is viable, but it takes time. And it's the same with everything worthwhile. I mean, there's nothing that is worthwhile that is all of a sudden, it doesn't happen like that. If you want a baby, it's going to take 9 months for the baby to come, right? It's going to take that.
This is coming from a father of 3.
So it's the same. Know this and let it sink in. Often when one of the markers that I use not to invest in a particular business or in a particular venture is if it promises too many quick wins. It looks like you put money here, in 3 months you are going to get, it begins to raise flags where in my own heart I begin to wonder really whether it is legitimate. So I'm not coming into this to say I'm going to make all of the money in one fell swoop. That's on my thoughts. But I think that that's why I'm starting small. I want to learn, and maybe I should put it out there. I'm prepared to fail. I'm okay if this doesn't work today. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to say, okay, so why didn't it work? What are the mistakes I made? How can I improve on it? So that when I have $1 billion to invest in it, I know that I've made all the mistakes while I was, a small farmer, So let's get in, let's start small, but let's know that success is going to take time. And even if we fail, I mean, it's life, it happens sometimes.
Sure.
Wake up, dust yourself, and get back in and continue learning.
Wow. It's really been a great time and a wonderful episode. I'm sure you agree. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a nice discussion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
United Nations Goal 2 is zero hunger. And I know we are also committed to ensuring zero hunger all over the world, in Africa and in Nigeria. So do you see